Hello everyone, thanks for joining. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just type in yes in the chat box so that we can continue with this session. Okay, so now we will wait for a couple of minutes and let everyone join this session.
Hi guys, good afternoon to all. I hope my screen is visible to all. None, is it visible? Can you ping me on chat? Okay. So guys, today we'll be discussing uh, about virtual assistants, that is Google Assistant, how we can build actions using Google Assistant, both static and dynamic. So in this demo, what I'll cover is how to create intents, what is the use of dialog flow, right, and how can you use the fulfillment section to make your intents dynamic. That is how you can fetch the data from a database and display it onto dialog flow either, or you can use Google Assistant to display that dynamic data. Okay, so I'm assuming that everyone is of crowd is bit mixed, intermediate and beginner. So I'll start with the basics first. Okay, so I have prepared few slides, but I'm gonna rush through the slides since everyone of you are aware of what is action on Google. Okay, so I'm gonna skip the basic slides and jump directly into the main topic. Okay. Yeah, so this is these are the supported languages in Google Assistant, and adding it more and more are being added. Just okay. So yeah, so this is it. This is the complete ecosystem that we have in Google Assistant. Okay, we have a Google Assistant where users interact with the actions and get the output either by typing something using a keyboard, or maybe using their own voice to get the results. And uh, the main thing behind this Google Assistant is action of Google's. So everything that we develop, right, has a console. either a Firebase console or a web console, right? If we are talking about some sort of dynamic stuff, we always use some sort of web kind of thing, right? A web server or maybe a console. So here in this case, we have a platform, Actions on Google, which enables us to create actions. Okay, and obviously, whatever actions we create using Actions on Google is being distributed to various devices. Okay, and so these are the three components we can say in an ecosystem: a Google Assistant, Action on Google, and the devices which contains Assistant inbuilt or either used to install it from Google Play Store. Okay, so that's how the ecosystem works. So let me check the comments if we have any. Okay, just ping me up. Okay, if there are any issues with the video or the screen share or the voice. Okay, I'll correct that. Okay. Okay, so actions on Google. Anyone would like to, give a comment what they understand about action on Google? Anything? Anyone? I'll switch to the comments mode. Anyone? None. You can also answer. What do you understand by actions on Google? What is the very first thing that comes into your mind? Everyone on this session. Anyone? Okay. I explained this in the very previous slide itself. What is actionable on Google? It's a platform that enables developers or a developer community to build assistant actions to extend assistance functionality. So whenever we're talking about Google Assistant, I heard many people, many of the guys are saying that we have built a Google Assistant. So this is not the correct line to say that we have built a Google Assistant. So whatever we build using actions on Google is being called as a action. That action is being distributed to all the global audience over the globe via Google Assistant. So basically, whatever you create using actions on Google is a extended functionality of Google Assistant. Okay. Okay. So let me check the comment. Okay, virtual assistant which extends the functionality of, yeah, correct. Okay, so how this happens in the background? Okay, so we have assistant, right, for whom we are creating action extending the functionality of assistant, right? So what users sees a user interface, right? And they just passed a normal input and they are expecting an output, a simple flow in every application that we have, whether it's a web application or a mobile application. The same flow is being integrated in actions on Google as well. So users are providing the input and expecting a output. Okay, so there are two ways by which we can provide the output. First is a static answer, and the second, it can be made dynamic. Okay, so there are various ways to make the answer in Google Assistant dynamic. Okay, we'll discuss that later on. So let's try to understand this very simple flow of Google Assistant. So here it is. So consider this one, a mobile device which a user is using to provide a user input. Okay, that user input is being sent to the actions console. Okay, and whatever depending upon the response that we set up, either it's a static response or a dynamic. If it's a dynamic response, a HTTP call is being made. Okay, and a response equivalent to that request is being also captured via HTTP response, which is again back to the actions console. Now this is now from here on that this is the responsibility of action on Google or AOG to provide the fulfillment or the output response to the user. Okay, so let me simplify this. User sends an input, action on console processes it, right, either statically or dynamically, and whatever the answer or whatever the output is, it is being sent to the device again. Okay, this is a very standard flow that we have in almost every application. The same flow goes with the AUG as well. Okay. Yeah. So whenever we talk about a particular technology, either it's mobile applications or web applications, right, there are certain building blocks in it. Okay. So AOG actions on Google also have some building blocks. The first one, the very first one is dialog flow, okay, which is used to provide a kind of backend, we can say, or a build. Okay. Then we have code. So actions on Google console, using Dialogflow, we can compile a static response. But if we want to make it dynamic, right, we can use cloud functions. And at the very last, we have actions on Google. So whatever we built using Dialogflow with the help of cloud functions or maybe web servers, right, using webhooks, that it can be published using actions on Google. Okay. So these are the three basic building blocks. Okay, we'll jump into the practical as well. Okay, first of all, I just want to explain some of the basics that we have to know. Yeah, so dialog flow. Anyone with any idea what is dialog flow? I'm switching to the comment window now. Anyone, any idea with dialog flow? What they understand by dialog flow? No one? Let's try to be interactive. If you don't know, then let me know. Okay, so let's wait for a couple of seconds. If anyone has to answer this one, anyone of you want to give a shot? Okay, so dialog flow. As I said, every application needs a backend to process some sort of data, right? So dialog flow, you can say, act to quite an extent a backend kind of thing, right? It's a kind of a backend which basically contains your static responses, which is being linked to your actions on Google console with the actions on Google console. Okay, so whatever things the action on Google is going to process, is it will be via dialog flow. Okay, so I'll let you know how you can create it. There is some comment. Okay, yeah, it's a Google service provide a functionality or platform. Okay. Yes, you can say that, but correcting this answer more, dialog flow, right, it matches whatever user says, right, and sends it back to the assistant or the actions console. I'll explain that. Yeah, again, it is very important to understand the flow before we directly jump into the development part. So here it is. So whenever user says something, it is being passed from actions on Google to Dialogflow. We have to define a build component in actions on Google as Dialogflow. Okay, you can define some other tools too, but as of now, the most important or trending kind of thing in Assistant is Dialogflow. So user says something, it is being sent to Dialogflow. Now, what Dialogflow does is does. Uh, how many of you understand NLP, natural language processing? Any idea with that? Any idea? What do you understand by NLP? It's a machine learning algorithm, right? If I'm not wrong. Okay. So what is the importance of dialog flow? You know, so very first thing whenever we talk about virtual assistants, right, is processing whatever user has said, either in the mode of communication or in terms of voice, in terms of text, right? You need to process it, correct? So how you can process it, right? You need to build your own engine, right? Your own NLP engine to understand what user is saying. So it's a very lengthy process. If we start building our own NLP engine and putting all the algorithms required for it, but what if I say that all these NLP engines and the processing part is being handled by Dialogflow itself? It's a cool thing. You don't need to write a piece of code for it. Okay, so yeah, you don't need to write any piece of code for it. It is Dialogflow that does the work for you. So whenever user says something, it goes to the agent. Now, what are intents? That I'll explain later on. So for now, just try to understand whenever user says something, it goes to the agent, then that that user saying is being matched with a particular intent, and if that intent is being matched, whatever response we defined in that particular intent is being sent to the user, okay, either statically or dynamically, that we'll discuss later on again. So this is a very beginner flow that we can understand. User say something, go to agent, match any of the intent. If it does, then go to the response of that agent and send it back to the user. Okay. Yeah. So this we can do it later. So let's jump directly into some sort of practical now. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking an example of my one of my previous projects. Okay, what I built. This project is kind of is for a community, a Facebook developer circle Chandigarh that I built for. Okay, it is live also. So I'll be not able to execute this project currently. Okay, due to Firebase console credentials, but I'll explain each and everything about it, how you can create intents, how you can create dynamic intents, what is the responsibility of fulfillment in dialog flow. Okay, so let's see what are intents. So okay, let me explain you a bit further. Okay, so let's create a new agent. Okay, so whenever you know try to sign in with actions on Google, let me open that console too so that I can explain both things side by side. Just write actions on Google on Google. So very first thing you get it is Google Assistant. Then you can directly jump into actions console. Okay, just changing my email ID. So once you are here, okay, so you can see I have done lots of project, right? It will display the previous. So just click on new project, right? Enter the name. As of now, I am entering DSC demo CGC. Okay, so select the country for which you want this agent to be visible. Okay, just select the country. If you select US, it will not be published in India and you won't be able to test it. Okay, so just try to choose India if you are working from India. Just create project. Now you can see once you click on create, you'll see a list of templates available which you can directly plug and play. All the intents, each and everything will be created by default. If you want to, if any of your use case matches with these pre-existing templates, you can use these templates. But as of now, I'm not using any of these three templates. I'll be starting a fresh project, so I just click on the console. So this was a project I built. Okay. Okay, so this is the very first screen that you directly jump into whenever you create a new project in actions on Google. Okay, so now here you can see an overview which contains certain tabs, right? You can see develop option, testing, deployment, and analytics. Okay, so as of now, since we are talking about dialog flow first, let's directly jump into the development part. Just click on the develop tab. Here you can provide a sample invocation by which your assistant will be invoked. Let's say if I say talk to Dr. Music, here is the name that you need to enter. Okay, so for example, let's say about my CV, DSC demo CDC for now. Okay, if this name is being already taken, it will throw an error unless and okay, yeah, so this your display name won't be approved because it contains too short. So there are certain guidelines which you can follow. Okay, so you need to give a name with proper by adhering the proper guidelines provided by action on Google console. So as of now I'm trying to give a sample invocation. Okay, so once it is being approved, okay, as of now I'm not getting the right name, so it will take time. So you can add a proper name in it, right? So once you do that, it will not show any error underneath. Okay, just try to make sure that you give a valid name, then directly jump to actions. So here at the very first screen you see there is no build action available. If I go back to my slide again, yeah, so there were three building blocks, right? The first one was build dialog flow. So this is the very first building block that we have in actions on Google, and it is being empty, right? So we need to get it started. Just click on get started. So here are pre-built or pre-existing in dialog flow agents available, which you can directly use, but as of now we are not going to use that. So I'll be clicking on custom intent. Okay, since we are writing it very fresh, once you select custom intent, click on build. Okay, so once I do that, it will ask me to choose an account for which I want to create a dialog flow. Just click on that. Now it will ask for certain permissions that you need to provide in order to continue with dialog flow. So now you can see this is a new agent. Okay, here you need to define the name. Okay, here you need to define the name. So I got a question from, right? So if I hope everyone is done with this, right? The sample invocation, I need to define it. Okay, so this has been taken. You can write some sort of this. So we were here. So this is the name of your agent. That is your dialog flow agent. Okay, just carefully choose your name. So as of now, I'm just choosing this with, and just click on create. Okay, make sure that the default language is English, and if you want to work in Hindi or some other language, you can choose it from here. Okay. Okay, so this is already created by someone. Great. So DSC demo CGC I'll be going for. This is also being taken. How many DSCs? The given project is already linked. Okay. Hope this is not taken. Okay, let me see if I have created something. Yeah, it is there. Okay. So once you do that, you can see at the very left hand side, you can see the name of your agent, DSC demo agent. Okay. This is it. This is the default or the very first screen, landing screen that you see once you create your agent. Here you can see there are two intents being available: default fallback intent and default welcome intent. Let me check out the comments if anyone has any issue. Okay, not yet. Just raise your just type a message, leave a comment if you face any issues. Team will get back to you. Okay, and so this is the very first screen that you see whenever you launch or create your agent in Dialogflow. Two intents that I have already seen. So now what are intents? What are intents? Anyone? Anyone? What are intents? Okay, since we discussed at the very start that whatever user says, it has to match something, right? And what something is that? Those are intents. So whenever users say something in actions on Google, right, in your action basically by using his or her voice or maybe typing something, that has to be matched with something, and these are matched with intents that we create in Dialogflow. Okay, so by default two intents are there. So I'll be opening one. Let's open default welcome. So I hope everyone has used actions in Google Assistant, right? So whenever you say something, hey, hi, ho, long time no, these are the training phases, and you might have seen, hi, how are you doing, hello, how can I help you. So these are the some of the default responses that we have. Okay, so I'll explain this intent and I'll directly create new one after this. Okay, so whenever user comes into your sys action, okay, if I say something like this, you can there is a try it now option in Dialogflow which you can use to test your intents here. You don't need to go to Google Assistant or actions in your device or a virtual simulator to test. So you can, if I just typed hi, right, this is the input that I given and this is the response what I got, right. Now if I click on diagnostic info, right, you can see there is a API call, right? It's a kind of JSON response that we get, right? This was the query context. This is a query text hi, which is being sent from Dialogflow, right? There's an action defined, that's why it is named as input.action. Now, this is the response that we are getting from it. Fulfillment, this is, and the response text is hello, how can I help you? And if you can see, this is the output. So in very short and simple terms, if I say we provide a input and it is being reverted back as a output by Dialogflow itself. So all this parsing of the API, JSON API is being done or handled by Dialogflow itself. You don't need to write anything. That's the beauty of it. So these are the training phrases which we need to give in order to train the NLP model that we have. Okay, so if you are aware of machine learning terms, right? So we need to train models in machine learning, right? So in some sort of, we can say that we provide training phrases to train our NLP model for our agent. More number of training phrases we define, more is the accuracy. Okay, so just scroll down. In response to those training phases, by default these are the responses defined. Hi, how are you, hello, how can I help you, good day. So these are the four responses defined. So these are being picked by Dialogflow randomly. Now if I try hi again, I might not see the same response again and keep on seeing the same response. Might be, let me try hello. Yeah, so if I typed hello, you can see a different response, greetings. So these are random responses which is being sent to the user screen. These are text responses. Okay, so now if I want to display a basic card or a card view kind of response, right? So if you click on this plus icon in the responses tab, you can see there are various options: Google Assistant, Facebook Messenger, telephony, Slack, Telegram, Meeting, right? So just click on Google Assistant, right? So once you do that, you'll see a new tab, default, and a Google Assistant. Okay, now here is what makes it dynamic, right? So now you can see that if we enable this or disable this, if I enable this, right, uses responses from the default tab as the first response. If I disable this, it will carry the responses from the Google Assistant itself. Okay, okay, just click on this add response. Now there are various type of responses that you can create in Google Assistant, right? So here you can see simple response, that is a simple text response which is also being sent via default tab. A basic card kind of thing you must have seen in various actions. A card kind of thing is being displayed. If you want your result to be a type of list, you can always have a list created from Google Assistant. There are suggestion chips, which is a kind of good practice to have suggestion chips as well. So let's kind of let's try to create a basic card. So I'll delete this one. Okay, let's just go to intents again. Now let's try to create a new intent. Okay, so let's create about intent. Just click on save. Every time you make any changes in intent name, try to save it. So once you do that, your intent is also created. Okay, now I click on intents again. Now I can see there are three intents. The first total three intents. The first two were default intents. Now the third one is a custom intent that we have created. Just click on that again. Okay, so here are the training phases. I'm highlighting it. These are the training phases that we need to add, which we need to work basically. So just click on add training phases. Now you'll see it is asking for a user expression. Since the intent is all about, right? So we'll discuss. Let me see. Okay, if a user says something like this, tell me about DSC. What is DSC? Yeah, uh, DSC program or simply DSC. So I have added four training pages as of now. You can see, right? DSC program. What is DSC? Tell me about DSC. Okay. So once I do that, let's try to add a simple text response first. DSC stands for developer student club. Okay. Now just try to save it. Once you do that, you can see intent is being saved, the training has been started, training has been completed. Okay, so these are the three pop-ups that you need to wait until you start testing it. So let's try something in this right now button. So once I type this DSC, it says DSC stands for developer student club. Now if I go to the diagnostic info, this was the query sent and this is the output received. Okay, so this is how you create a new intent, and define the training phases and train your intent. And this is the text response. Now let's, what if I want to display a card kind of thing, right? So let's enable this one, right? I'm not sure. Okay, so let's try to create a basic card. So very first thing, it is asking for an image. So let's try to, add an image. mm, JC Google Images. Yeah, let's try to add this one. Just copy the address, just paste it. Okay, so once you do that, it will start fetching the image from the link. If the link is valid, let me test this link is working. No, this is not the link. Okay, yeah, so we need to copy image address, try to paste it here. Okay, so this image is being fetched from the link that you have provided. You can directly host your images if you are having local images on your local Google Drives, right? Just post your images on Google Drive and try to link it here. Okay. Now this is the accessibility text, which is kind of mandatory. So you can write anything, but make sure it's a meaningful text or relevant text uh, explaining your image, this image. So this is the description kind of thing that you can enter. Okay. Okay, so try to save. If you got any error, then you need to okay, so enter a title, web link title. mm, Facebook, or let's try to have meetup link. Okay, so let's try to search. Okay. Nand, can you give me some DSC meetup link in chat so that I can use it? Okay, so let it be. Let have a link of this thing. Okay, okay. This was disabled. So once you save that, it will start the training again. So I have given a wrong link for this meetup. Okay, so bear with that. Okay, so now the training is being completed, and this is the first intent, custom intent that you have created. Okay, so what if after this I need to add some more responses? I talk about suggestion chips, right? So what if once a user gets this response, I want to kind of show some sort of responses to the user. So these are for those purpose suggestion chips. You can enter the text. Let's say for now, enter high, right? You can add a number of chips. Low. Okay. Okay. So let's see how this works with assistant, right? So let's try to test this one. Just go to the integration tab and the left pane. Right. Just click on the integration part. Click on Google Assistant. Right. Just click on test. It will navigate you to the Google Assistant page, the console, basically the actions console in which you can test this functionality in the simulator. So we were building this one, I guess.
Let's get the test version of my test app. Greetings. How can I assist? Greetings. How can I assist?
So you can see if I say hi in a simulator, it fetches the default response. Okay. Now let's try to understand how this basically works. If you click on the request tab again, right? So this is the query string which is being sent, right? It's very similar to the dialog flow string, right? If I go to response tab, you can see this is this is what I received as a simple text response. Because if I go back to console, right? Go to intents and the welcome default intent. Here you can see what we defined was these were the text responses that we defined, right? These were the text responses that we defined, and it is being displayed in the actions as a simple response, right? Greetings, text to speech, and display text. Now let's try to invoke something that we created. Try about if it is
Sorry, can
it
you say
works.
that again?
So it is not working, right? So if you go to about, we have not defined anything related with about. We have defined DSC program. What is DSC? Right? So let's try to use some sort of word like DSC.
DSC stands for Developer Student Club.
Like, so you can see this is again taking the response from the default response tab that we did it, right? If we disable this one, okay, so there is some sort of error that we're getting it. Just try to test at your end if it's working. Let's try to test it here. What output does it give on Dialogflow? Okay, it is giving the same output that we are getting in the simulators tab. So this is how basically you can see whatever response we got here. This is a simulator which is not displaying the actual text that we want to display, right? So this is the image URL that we given in the basic card, which, right, this was the accessibility text. This was the title that we given on Meetup, right? And this is the URL which we mentioned for Meetup link. Okay, so this is what we are getting. The text or the values that we define for a basic card, it is getting fetched in the form of JSON, right? If you want, you can always track the logs from this one too. Again, I need to switch my accounts just to trace the logs. So this is a very good platform, right? Google Console, where you can always track what was being queried, what was the answer. So these are the logs from where you can track. See, each and everything that we, what type of conversation we had with our agent, it is being generated in the form of request, right? If I click on this one, you can see, let me zoom in a bit. So let me open a slide just to explain the flow again. So this is a user input that goes to HTTP request, right? So here in the logs, you can see it's a HTTP request that we sent as an input to this Google Console, and the what we are getting in terms of output, it's a success, right? Intent is matched, query matched true. So that's how basically it works in the background. So anyone, any questions with this response, how this works, how we are getting the HTTP response back? Anyone with any questions so far, so that we can jump to the dynamic part? Switching to comments mode just to check any queries. Anyone? Or should we switch to the dynamic part? Okay, no questions. Yeah. So this was the response that we were getting right in the basic card. So this is a simulator which will not display any sort of card that we have created, right? So just go to display. These are the tabs where you can check the audio, right? Errors. So just go on to display. Here you can see whatever card we created is being displayed, like DSC Developer Student Club, and the image that we provided in the basic card with information, right? So this is how your card will look like in a real device. So let's switch back to again. So as of now, we discussed about intents, right? What are the what is a welcome intent, fallback intent? So whenever user says something which is not listed in your intents, right, and does not match with any of the intent that you have defined, it will go to a fallback intent. Right? So fallback intents basically creates a kind of error message that is being displayed to the users, saying, okay, something I missed, or maybe we don't recognize what are you saying. So these are the default responses in which you can always add new responses as well, right? So this is a fallback intent from which error responses are being fetched. If I say from developer's point of view, okay. Now go to integrate fulfillment. So these were some of the static responses, right, which we were displaying to the users using these tabs, actions, Google Assistant tab, right, the default simple response tab. But what if we want to display a dynamic response to the user, right? So just go to fulfillment in the left pane from the menu. You'll see two options: a webhook and an inline editor. So webhook is basically kind of integrating your own server. Maybe let's take example of Heroku, right? You have created some kind of database and a API structure in Heroku, right? You can always fetch those data from Heroku into your Google Assistant. Just in order to do that, just click on this webhook, right? Enter your server URL, basic authentication auth tools, header files, right? Any, and just test it. Once you do that, you need to provide all the files, all the authentication purpose, headers, and the values. The webhook will be enabled. But in today's session, we'll be discussing or giving more emphasis on inline editor. Okay. So again, if you want to, learn more about webhook, how we can integrate it, since we are not covering this part in this demo, so you can always go to webhook requirements. But again, here you need to define your server and the basic authentication that is required to authenticate your server. So since we are not using this webhook, let's enable inline editor. Once you do that, it will ask you to set up your billing account in Google Cloud. So it's a kind of expensive one, right? I have just disabled my billing account, right, since I'm not using any of it. So here, whenever you here go to your billing account in Cloud Console, you need to create a billing account. Just in order to activate your inline editor, right? So just name your billing account, select your country, right, and what you're going to use. You will be using Google Cloud Platform, that is GCP, and continue. Okay. Once you do that, your billing account will be created. It will ask for a payment method. Okay. So if you have a credit card, try to put that one. Okay, your billing account will be enabled. Okay, since I cannot enter my card details, so I'll jump to a pre-built agent of mine where I had enabled these billing details. Okay, so here's how your inline editor will look like once you enable your billing account. Okay, the index.json file, a common file you must have heard in your web applications as well, right? A file that contains all the functions which will be invoking your data, or which will be fetching your data from the server. And this is package.json. In package.json, you need to define the dependencies, basically the libraries that you will be using to interact with your server. Okay, in inline editor, here in dependencies, let's say I have included Firebase, action on Google, right? So this is required. Actions on Google is required, since if you want to create a card or send a response back to your actions console, or action, right, which will be displayed something like this, right? If you want to send a response from inline editor to this simulator or your real device, then you need to add this dependency, actions on Google. Don't worry about don't bother about writing it. We'll be sending all these dependencies after this session, or emailing all the guests whosoever is joined. So actions in Google dependency needs to be added. Okay, since in this demo I have used Firebase functions, so I am using this Firebase functions as well. So many of these libraries will be by default included, like actions on Google and Dialogflow, right? But Node.js, Node fetch, right? uh, if I am using node functions to fetch something, this will not be included by default. You need to add this library. Okay, once you do that, just click on deploy again. If you deploy, it will show a success message, right? Then jump back to the index.json file now. So every coding language has some kind of imports, right? Whether you use it in Node, or maybe in Android, or maybe in iOS, or maybe Java, we need to import some sort of libraries, right? In order to do that, in index.js file, right, inside inline editor. So this is the syntax, right? So I'm importing causal view, dialog conversation, and simple response. So these are the response types basically, which we have in this dialog flow. If I go back here in my about intent, here you can see a Google Assistant, and if you click on add responses, so these are the basic types that we have, right? Simple response, basic card, list, suggestion chips, carousel card, right? So if I want to display a response in terms of using these types, so what I'm doing here is I'm just simply importing all these responses from actions on Google. This is a library, right, that contains everything. So I have imported these three simple responses here. I defined it. Also suggestion chip, right? Suggestions, if I want to, we can also import it here. uh, so I'm not using Dialogflow, I'm not using this uh, functions here. Okay, so these are the functions, cloud functions, if you want to use it. Firebase, yeah, I'm using Firebase database, so I have imported Firebase database in a constant named as Firebase. I'm using Node.js, right? So I have imported that Node.js object in fetch. Yes, I'm using HTTP library to fetch the database from to invoking the API, so I have included the HTTP. Okay, so this is where you need to define your API key. Okay, I forgot to remove my one. So this project is live also. So this is the API key that you can use. Here you need to define the API key from your Firebase console. Once you enable your billing, you'll get a API key from your Firebase console that you need to define it here, right? This is a auto-fill domain that you will get it once you create the Firebase app of your assistant. Okay, this is a database, file store database that I have created, which I can show you here. So this is a file store database that I have created in my Firebase account. So this is the table name, and these are the fields that I have. So what we'll be doing, we'll be creating a function that will interact with this table inside the database and fetching all these fields from there. Okay, so how we can do that? So once this configuration is being defined, okay, you need to use this initialize app, where you need to pass the config. This is a standard method that we have to initialize the Firebase functions. Just firebase.initialize app and pass this one. Okay, so now let's directly jump into the functions, how we can create it. So just scroll down at the very bottom, you will see some predefined intents here. Okay, under Google Assistant, right? These are the predefined things you'll see. So let's just quickly jump back to the intents that we created earlier. So let's try to understand how this works. About intent, default fallback intent, default welcome intent. Let's jump to the slide now. Right. So user says something, agent tries to match that intent. If user says hi, agent will try to find that hi in the defined intents, whatever training phrases we have defined in every intent. It will try to match. If that hi matches with any of the intents, it will pick that intent and choose the response, right? That would be understood. Now let's go back. So here we have about intent, fallback intent, default intent. Now let's What if I want to make this dynamic? Whatever user says something, if user says something like DSC program, what is DSC, tell me about DSC. If I don't want to define this static response anymore, I want to make it dynamic. What I'll do, I need to remember the name of this intent. Okay, once you know the name of the intent in inline editor, you need to map that intent. Here you'll see intent map, right? Intent map object which is being created. Now if I want to define my about intent, I'll be copying this line, just paste it, go to the console again. I'm copying this about intent now. So this is the default welcome intent. Just try to paste, just paste it, about intent. I have pasted this about intent. This is the name of my intent which is defined in the dialog console. Okay, now what does this mean? This means this intent is being mapped to welcome. Okay, now let's jump to welcome. What is welcome? Just scroll down. This is a written code that you'll get it in inline editor. If you go to welcome now, just let's try to find welcome. Where is welcome defined? It's a long class that I have defined. Okay, finally I got it. So this is welcome. Okay, so you can see who here. Let me go a bit further. Yeah, so this is welcome. So that means welcome is a function which will execute something, right? That is what we understood from the code. Welcome is a function which will execute something. It takes agent as a parameter. By default, agent is available in inline editor. So what we did, agent dot add welcome to my agent. Okay, so whenever this function is being invoked, agent has to write this line or show this as a response, welcome to my agent. Okay, now scroll back, scroll down at the very bottom. So that means we have mapped about intent with welcome function. So that means whenever about intent will be matched, welcome function will be invoked. That is as simple as that. Okay, so this is how you map dynamic data. Okay, so this is a static response again, since if I go to the welcome function again, right? Yeah, so you see this is again a static response, welcome to my agent, but it is being invoked dynamically, but a static response. What if I want to get it dynamically? So here you can see in this sample project, I have defined this intent, past events. Past events is the name of the function, sorry, name of the intent, and call fun is the name of the function. So that means whenever past event is being matched, okay, this function will be invoked. Now let's try to go to this function, what this function is doing. Okay, so this is the function, call function, which will be invoked whenever the past event intent is matched. So can anyone let me know what is the meaning of this? So here you can see it's a simple var variable that I have declared, reference variable. This is the Firebase object which we defined at the very top, if you remember. Yeah, just going above, just to show you, this is the Firebase object, right? This is the Firebase object which I defined earlier, right? So I'm using this object now. Yeah, Firebase, this is a method inside that that object database and the name of the database. Okay, so now I have the database access in a variable named as reference. Now from that reference database, I need to get the information that I have defined in this one. Here you go, this is it. So this is event, right? This was my database and this is events from where I want to fetch the data. So I have mentioned the child as event. Now just forget about the commented code as of until. Okay, right? Yeah, so this is the method that we were discussing, right? So yeah, so once you get access to events, right, your table, right, you need to iterate to achieve what. So if you see that I have defined event date, description, event name, event speakers, event venues, status, right. So if I want to fetch all these, I need to iterate, obviously, right. I need to pass that response. So this firebase object will give us all the data inside this event. So we are using a for each loop to iterate the childs. Okay, so here you can, this code is simply right, written in Node. You can use any sort of language which is being supported here in fulfillment, right, but it is always preferred to use this. So for each you are iterating to the childs, right. So these are basically console inputs, output that are being displayed. So these will be displayed on Firebase console, not on in these logs, but in Firebase consoles. So now I have received the data, name, URL, venue, and the event page. Now you want to send it to the agent. What you will do? You will just use the agent dot add method and pass your data here, right. So this is the method agent dot add, where you need to pass the data. Now I want to create a basic card kind of response or a simple if I want to create a simple response, I'll just simple columns and I'll type the response. This will be printed. But what if I want to create a custom response? So I'll just create a new card, right. Again, if I jump to the console, back to the console, if I go to about intent, right, this was the basic card that we were creating. What it requires an image, it requires a description, it requires some other fields, right. So I'm just providing that, the name, image, URL, the text, the button that we created for meetup, right, and this events page, right. So this is what we're defining it here. The image, the text, the description, all these fields are being defined in this card, right. So once you do that, just click on deploy these. You are creating a Firebase function which will fetch your data from this sample database, right, and this will create a card view kind of thing in your Google Assistant, in your actions, which will be displayed in Google Assistant, okay, by Google Assistant. So this is how basically fulfillment works. You can either use webhook, you can use inline editor. Just don't forget to about define the dependencies in package.json, whatever you want to use it, okay. So I'll jump back to the questions again. Do you have any questions, how we can integrate this uh, inline editor or maybe webhook? Any questions, any queries? Don't worry, what we will do after this session, we'll try to share all the samples that we have, right, the official samples where you can refer webhooks, where you can refer these inline editors. So we have given a very basic brief overview how you can create actions and how you can use fulfillment section to make your actions dynamic. So any queries, any questions do you have for me or my team? Please let us know. Okay, so it seems like no questions, no queries. None, maybe you would like to end ending note with ending note.
Am I audible right now?
Yeah, you are audible.
So, thank you guys for informative session. I kind of create their own and thank you for joining this session. If you think creating this you can contact ACC or or you can say my team. Thank you for joining this session.